Hey everybody, this is Daniel Moore with Propelio, and we've got Grant Kemp here with CreativeCashFlow.com. Is that correct?
CreativeCashFlow.com, yeah.
So I've been working with you personally for three or four years. I mean, whenever I first got started, you were definitely the go-to guy in the area for Subject 2. You and Scott and your little team of people over there were definitely the people that everybody reached out for some resources. And you helped me through a lot of deals. I mean, you've definitely helped me make some good money before, so good. I'm not complaining about that whatsoever. But I think it's interesting that I've heard your story about how you got started investing, and you've definitely taken a different approach than many other people do. Do you mind giving us a little bit of background about how you got into this business?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I agree with you because we've talked about that before. I mean, a lot of people get wrapped up and just, I've got to learn and learn and learn, and you get in what we call an analysis paralysis, right? You're just so busy and learning. You've got to learn. Don't get me wrong, but at some point you got to jump too, right? So whenever I was getting started, I'd done a lot of studying. I went to the websites and was trying to learn on the bigger pockets of the world and those kinds of things, and doing some studying there. And then, after just looking around and figuring out what I could and couldn't do, I was like, look, man, this job is just getting in my way, right? Working 9 to 5 is just, I can't. I'm focusing too much time on this chunk of my day where I could be making money. I prayed about it a lot, and I just felt like I was being led to leave. And so I went into my boss, and I was like, "Look, sorry, I got I got better things to do here, right?" So I got to fire my boss, and that was only after. And just as a timeline, I had that was 6 months after my first deal, and that first deal came maybe a couple of months into when I was studying for stuff, right?
So when you're saying studying, did you have any formal education, or was this all bootstrapped?
Right, I didn't. It was all bootstrapped. I was the guy, like I said, I was going to forums, I was calling and asking questions, that kind of thing, and just trying to figure out what was going on.
So just a couple of months into it, you'd already nailed your first deal?
Right. And my first deal is kind of one of those combo deals, right? I hear people refer to it as house hacking, where you buy a duplex and you live in half and you rent half, right? Okay. So right whenever I started deciding, like, hey, I think real estate's going to be good for me, I knew that was what I wanted to do, and so I went ahead, and that was my first gig. So I bought a house, or bought a duplex, rented half, lived in half. Well, lo and behold, my tenant that was in the other side had an ex that they had split up, and they had this house over in Casa View, which over in East Dallas area is great for owner financing. Well, owner financing was the niche that I was going to go down, because in all my studying, my Google queries were, how do you make money in real estate without having any money to spend in real estate, right? And so owner financing was where I was going to head with that. And so part of the deal there is just getting out there and just telling people that that's what you want, And so when the conversation came up with her about her old deal, I said, look, if that's ever going to be something that you're wanting to get rid of, or you're just ready to go to foreclosure, the key was, she was like, I'm just ready to give it back to the bank. You ever hear that? You buy that house, I'm just ready to give it back to the bank. You buy that house. So I bought that house from her, owner financed. And then whenever I saw these two things put together, and it might not even been 6 months. I mean, it was quick. It was quick after that I figured, look, this is where I want to go. So I quit my job and went full time, and then just started busting butt. I mean, at that point in time, it's either
it's
a
get
lot
it done
of work.
or sink.
Right.
I mean,
it's like I say all the time. A quote that I heard a long time ago is, "You jump and the net will appear." Right.
That is. I went through the same path, and I mean, it's crazy how much flapping your hands can really make something happen, because you get out there and you're in that situation where you either start flying or you hit the ground, and it really motivates you.
I know, and that's the word I was going to say. I mean, you've got to have that motivation. You can't get lazy with this stuff. I mean, the first it was 18 to 20 months. The first 18 to 20 months of my career, I literally averaged 15 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. My first couple of years, I might have taken 3 days off total. I mean, I was showing houses literally Christmas morning. I had to get up early and go show somebody. Now, I made 30 grand on the house, right? But that's Christmas morning, right? I mean, it's tough. It's tough when you're trying to get out there. But I will say, on that note, I mean, that's by knowing really successful investors like yourself and other guys that I get to talk to a lot in the business, is that's one of the common threads that I see in the people who are really doing it, is the ones that are willing to take that step and say, look, I know enough to be dangerous, and I'm going to go make some money off of this.
Yep, that is the absolute truth. I mean, you're talking about 18-hour days, 3 days off your first year. So are you kind of the opinion that this is the job that you do in your underwear in your grandma's basement at night and only working 4 hours a week? Or,
well, you
hear a lot of people talking about that.
You do, and that's tricky, because now I mean, I'll be completely frank. I haven't spent a full day at the office in like 6 months. You know what I mean? Like it's now I am kind of at a point where you've got the systems running, you've got enough stuff going that can take some of that brunt, but you can't be afraid of work, right?
How long did it take for you to get to that point?
It took me about 3 years, 3.5 years before I was to the point where I could just kind of trust that things were going on. And when I say trust that things are going on, I mean, I'm still having to, I'm still working late nights. I'm still doing that, but it's one of those things where when the work is there for you to do, you better do it, and you better do it right? But my whole strategy from the start, which is one of the reasons why I was working so much at the beginning, my whole strategy from the start was you set up your systems, right? You make sure that you've got the right people in the right place. I'm big on partnerships. I'm big on, I'd rather make a little bit of a lot than a lot of a little bit, you know what I mean? So setting up the right people in the right place, making sure that you got things working the way that they should be, and plugging all those puzzle pieces together to get to a point where, it's taking the Dave Ramsey quote. It's like you live now like nobody else so that you can live later like nobody else. I lived the first part of my career working my butt off more than anybody else in the business was so that I could back off. And now I'm making more money than I ever have. But it's because the work is still getting done, right? It's not, you can't just sit in your basement and just hope that leads are going to happen because you put a AdWord thing out on Google and it's like, well, if anybody searches for cheap houses in Texas, they're coming to me. That's not how it goes. It's a lot of hustle, and that's another common thread in the people that I know that are successful like yourself. I mean, I don't know of anybody, and I'm not trying to, I'll say this behind your back too, but I don't know anybody that hustles as hard as Daniel does. And I mean, you can see that in his everyday life of just the investing career with what's gone on with Propelio, what's going on here. I mean, and similarly, if there's work to be done, and I'm not overperforming everybody already, I'm getting that done, right? You've got to be aggressive. You've got to go out there and do it. But if you have the plan and you've got your strategy set up, it's different for different people. I wanted to be able to relax. Some people, like my partner Scott Horn, I mean, that dude is, he's freaking
5 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock. And he's freaking loaded. I mean, he does not need to be doing this, but that's his thing, so it's, everybody's different,
I'm glad that you mentioned that, do a little bit now like nobody else would so you can do what nobody else can in the future. Mm-hmm. I mean, I butchered that completely, but for close to 2 years when I first got started investing, I had that quote pasted in my front door on the inside of my front door of my house. So every time I walked out that front door, I understood that what I was doing that day was something that nobody else was willing to do. And because of that, I would be able to live like nobody else could in a few years. And it happened. I mean, it was because of that motivation and drive that I got up and I went out every single day, not knowing what I was doing, not scared to fail, and just went out there and said, I'm going to do it. That really got me to where I'm at today. I mean, when you did your very first couple of deals, I'm sure you didn't know everything. You just were willing to get out there and start asking questions, start doing what you had to do.
Right.
And I think that's a big thing for new investors is you got to start walking. Mm-hmm. There really is nothing else to it than that.
Absolutely. I mean, and you're totally right. I mean, I like, with CreativeCashFlow.com, I do train people, and I've got a lot of my students who will get scared of all the other work that other people are doing, and they're like, oh, well, why would I send out these mailers? Everybody's sending out mailers. I'm like, well, if you don't have, when the seller picks up their stack of letters and picks one, if yours isn't in there to get picked, you're not getting picked, right? You can't be afraid of what other people are doing, and you've just got to attack. You've got to focus on you and just do what other people aren't willing to do. Send the marketing. Get up every morning. Treat it like a job, right? Too many people say, I'm an investor. That means I don't have to do anything. It's a job. If you're working a 9 to 5 and you're doing this, you have 2 jobs.
That is the truth.
Right? And if you don't treat it like you have 2 jobs, it's a hobby, and it's not going to be what sets you financially free.
That is the 110% truth. I mean, if you're already working a 9 to 5, you better expect to take a second job. And if you're not willing to commit to a second job, I'm not going to say you won't be successful. It's just
Just know what you're doing.
Yep.
You've created a hobby that's going to get you an extra couple $100s here and there.
Yep.
You haven't created something that's going to allow you to retire when you're 40.
So how long have you been into this now?
Full time, I've been doing this about 5 years.
5 years
at this point in time.
How many homes would you say under your belt at this point?
Well, that's a harder question to answer. So my own portfolio, I've got 150-ish on that, but I've been involved with, whether it's through originating or partnering or something, with about $70 million worth of single family homes.
So what do you mean by originating?
So one of the things, I'm a licensed RMLO, which is, for those of you who are looking into owner financing, with all of the regulations that have popped in, Dodd-Frank namely, there's a lot of things that have to happen for you to legally be able to put somebody into a mortgage, right? One of those things is that you've got to have a licensed individual be the person that actually looks over the deal, takes the application, makes sure that everything works for it. gets all the debt to income ratios and that kind of stuff and puts that together so that you've got a compliant deal going forward. So, I founded Texas Pride Lending. I've since sold that company, but I founded Texas Pride Lending to do that for other investors. And then one of the things, that set us apart as RMLOs is that I started the business as an investor, right? I was an investor first, who then went into the service industry of helping people originate their notes. So, whenever I was dealing with a note on that, most of the time I was walking somebody through the closing or helping them contract it or something, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of gears that turn in a deal like this that you've got to be aware of. And so it was more of a full service, helping people along the line the full way on that side too.
I know that you had mentioned that, making everything was legal and everything. Mm-hmm. And when you first got into this, you partnered up with an attorney, right?
Right.
So that kind of worked out really well for you.
Yeah.
What was your thought process behind that? Why'd you go that route? I know you said you'd rather have, a little of a lot than a lot of a little. Mm-hmm. And, can you maybe...
For sure, yeah. That's a big part. That has been the key to my success in this industry was that partnership, but just that mentality, right? Of making sure that you're hooked up with the right people. So when I was, like I said, I was doing the Google searches and trying to figure out what I was going to do with owner financing. Well, Scott Horn's name kept popping up as the guy to talk to. He's the attorney in Texas to do with the owner financing stuff because he's got more experience than anybody else does, and he's done this more times and in better ways.
So other than just being an attorney, he is an investor.
Yeah, he's an investor. He's an investor that is also an attorney, and that's similarly to how my Texas Pride took off because I was an investor who was an RMLO. He's an investor who's an attorney, so he understands it the way that we understand it, right?
Okay.
So his name kept popping up all the time about that. So whenever it was time for me to quit my job, remember how I said you've got to be aggressive about this and you've got to go out there and do things that other people aren't willing to. Well, so I just started bugging him. I'm pulling on his coat all the time. How can we work together? How can we work together? What's going on? This is what I'm trying to do. I brought him a couple of deals that we were doing, and I just kept bugging him until one day, he finally brought me in to talk about what we met. And I'm just hoping that he's going to send me some dead leads or something. I don't know what's happening. I'm brand new in this business, you know what I mean? And so sat down and talked with him and just shared what I was, willing to do and what I wanted to get done. And lo and behold, left with the key to the building and a partnership after, within 6 months, we were full partners on everything. And that's been the hugest stair step because I got to learn from the best, right?
He's been in the business 20, 30 years?
Yeah, 30 plus. Yeah. So, one of the questions that you asked me about was about formalized education, right? Like I didn't pay for a formalized education in the way of I'm going to shell out a bunch of money right now and pay for the education and get it back. But I have paid for the education in that, we're partners on every deal that we do still, right? Mm-hmm. But I was able to learn from the best. And that was one of the reasons that turned me into wanting to turn that relationship around and saying, look, now I'm in a position where I can offer this to other people too, right? And seeing that I would never be where I was or where I am today if I didn't have that guy to learn from that knew and had been there and done that, and that I could peek my head in the, hey, what do I do with this freaking tax lien, or what do I do with, there's a child support lien, whatever it is, weird thing to be able to get that handled up. So
you keep talking about owner financing and stuff like that. Can you give me just maybe an overview of what your typical deal would look like? I mean,
sure.
What is it that you're going after?
So I go after everything. Like I think that, for those of you who have read Good to Great, there's the hedgehog principle, right? And the hedgehog principle is that you focus on what you're good at, and that's what's going to make you better than everybody else, right? I think that too many investors in this industry get blinders on, and they say, my hedgehog principle is I'm a wholesaler, or I do fix and flips, or I rent, or whatever it is, and they don't open their mind to I'm going to make money in real estate, right? So that's me, is I'm going to make money in real estate. So I do single family. That's my deal, is single family. But I rent, I wholesale, I owner finance, I do all these different kinds of things, right? But owner financing is such a great niche because not everybody knows how to do. Owner financing is admittedly the most complicated way to make a deal work, right? If you're buying with owner financing, selling with owner financing, there's about 10 trillion more gears turning than a wholesale deal or something like that, right? So I've kind of found that niche, and that's one of the main areas that I'm shooting for. So that being said, I think we all understand what a good wholesale deal looks like, right? We're looking for those 70, 75 cent deals that we can turn around and flip out real quick. We know what a rental looks like. But my typical owner finance deal, the beauty of that is that we don't have to have a specific LTV, right? Like I can buy a house at all the way up to 100% of its value and still turn $200,000 off of it, right? It's going to be over time, but you're playing arbitrage. You're playing the game of interest at that point in time. So a typical deal for me would be like, let's say The house is worth 100 once it's fixed up. Its ARV is going to be 100. I'm going to buy that house for, let's say $85,000, right? But I'm going to buy it subject to, meaning that I'm going to continue to make payments on that person's behalf. I'm going to essentially take over on their payments, right? They may be facing foreclosure. Foreclosure houses are like shooting fish in a barrel at that point in time, because you want to talk about a motivated seller. You lose your house next week whether you sell it to me or not, right? So that you got your motivated seller right there. But so I might take over on that. I'm going to catch up the payments that they had due to the bank. So they owe Wells Fargo $5,000, right? So I buy it. I take over on an $85,000 mortgage. I might put $5,000 up to catch up the arrears. It may need $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in repairs. But then you're going to sell it for 100 or even 105, maybe sometimes 110, depending on the area that it is, because owner-financed houses, when they sell, are worth more because you've got your mortgage and your house included in it, right? So it's and the inventory is much lower. So just like supply and demand on regular comps, you got supply and demand on owner-financed properties, and they're worth more. So let's say you sell it for 105, you take a $10,000 down payment, so you're making 10 grand up front. And then my typical deal, I'm averaging somewhere between $350 and $500 a month in cash flow while that underlying lien is being paid off. And then once the underlying lien is paid off, you're shooting up to 8 or 9 or $1,000 a month.
That's the benefit of it. I mean, you're talking about up front, paying $5,000 off, and then you're bringing $3,000 into some minor repairs. What kind of repairs are you doing on these types of homes? Are you buying pretty houses, distressed houses? What are you looking for? Because most wholesalers are trained to find, the most distressed house you can possibly find and get the steepest discount you can find. You're talking about finding properties with little to no discount.
Right.
And are these properties that need a lot of work, or what are you doing with it?
Sometimes. That's the beauty of real estate. That's the thing one of the things I enjoy most about it is you just got to be creative and you got to look at the deal itself, right? So, a lot of the time, whenever you're buying these houses, they may be in bad shape. They may be fine. I've bought a few houses that I've had to literally do nothing to, right? I just catch up the payments, put it on the market, have somebody buy it from me, owner financing, right? But I finished up a rehab yesterday on a house that I sunk 30 into. It's a $160,000 house, and I took over on a mortgage of I think 100 or 90. Somewhere in there, I can't remember.
So many deals you don't remember anymore.
I know, yeah. So, there's truth to that. That's why that's why you have a good staff, right? So, I think I bought it at somewhere in the 90 range, and then I put 30 into it in cash to catch up the arrears, which was about 6, and then there was a $20,000 to $22,000 rehab, right? So it was a decent sized rehab, but at the end of the day, I've got a lot of equity in the deal, right? And I've got I think a 650 or a 700 cash flow coming in on that one.
So you're selling that one owner financed?
I'm going to sell that one owner financed, right? And then, part of that too is it's all about leverage, right? You're leveraging skill and ability for what other people have. Because that's another life pro tip that I'll give you guys, right? Is that when you get into this business and you've learned how to do everything and you know how this stuff works better than anybody else, you become the guy or the girl, right? And so you're able to leverage that skill for what other people don't have. I always refer to the yin yang in real estate, right? You've got to work with what you have and leverage your strengths with somebody else's strengths, because you're going to be weak in an area where somebody else is strong. Right? And that's why partnerships are so great. Well, one of those areas may be cash, right? There's a lot of people out there that are high-earning individuals that are working their 9-to-5s that don't have the time or ability to go out and buy these deals at discount and do the things that they need to do to get it done, and you do, right? So you start leveraging that, and in this case, like with my deal that I'm talking about right now, I've got the cash. That's no big deal, but I don't like spending my own money, right? So because I've got the skills to leverage. So I spent the cash, but one of my investors is refinancing me out that 30 that I put into it, right? So now I'm really out of pocket zero, and I just work it into the cash flow model where it's like, okay, I may make $300 instead of $600 a month. That's $300 a month, and I didn't spend any money on it at the end of the day, right? And you're getting a $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 net on your down payment to begin with. So
I know for me getting started, and for a lot of the people that I've talked to in the circles of real estate investing, a lot of the newer people coming in are deathly afraid of, I don't have the money, I need to find the money, I need to find the money, and it's the exact opposite of what you need to do. Yeah. You need to find the deal. Right. And if you're able to find the deal, you will 110% get the money. I was surprised at how fast I was able to find money as I started getting into this business. When I first started out, the money was a kind of a fear, but so I did a little bit here, a little bit there, and then as deals started coming in, I started getting hundreds of thousands of dollars available to me, turning into millions and then into 8 figures and 9 figures. I mean, I've got access to private capital that's phenomenal, but that all happened because I was out there hitting the streets and working it, building up my knowledge and finding the properties. And as that knowledge built up and I found the properties, when I was talking to people like you and other successful investors, I'd be like, I got this, I got that, and then I'd be like, well, I can help you fund that. And then I started finding out how easy it was really to find money. Finding money is not the hardest thing in this business. It's actually probably one of the easiest things because money chases good money. And if you bring good money to the table, meaning a good house, the money's going to chase you.
I like how you put that. Yeah, that's very true. And I'll tell you, that's one of those things that you hear successful investors say is like, oh, don't worry about the money will appear. And I'll tell you, I was that guy. I mean, I'm probably there right with you, with a couple of you guys sitting there saying like, these stupid idiots, they always say the money's hard to get. It's not. It's really not. I was right there with you. I was like, they're just saying that because they're rich. It's not. If you have the deal, you approach somebody that you know is good in the business. You approach a Daniel, you approach a Grant, and you say, look, I've got this deal, and I need to get it closed. And again, if it's a deal, the money will appear. And then the other advice I have for you is just talk to people. Tell them what you're looking for. Tell them that you need funding for these deals that you're working on or whatever, and you never know. You've got family members, you've got other people at these RIA clubs and all these things that have money in their IRA, or they have money in a holding, they're not making anything off of. They're making 4.5%, 6% in the market. And you can easily offer 8 or 10 or 12 on these things, and the money comes.
And they're excited. They're excited. They want to be on that deal. They're like, well, I'm making 2, 3, 4% where I'm at right now. You're offering me 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, that's a no-brainer, and it's secured by strong real estate. So,
I know. I'll never forget one of the first times I've funded deals with my private money. I'm paying them 8%, leveraged out for 10 years or something like that, and it was great money, and it's a great deal, and I'm gonna just make a killing off of this, and I'm like, how is this even working? And my lender literally, like, they spent like 15 minutes thanking me for spending their money for them at the end of it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is how it's gonna be. Let's do it.
So, I mean, rolling through this, I mean, we've kind of gone through some of the funding. You really don't need capital starting out in this business. You just need to find the deals and everything else like that. But with all that being said, what would you say the number one activity that a real estate investor must do on a daily basis to be successful in this business? I mean, obviously you started out and then you scaled and you've outsourced it. But even through that outsourcing, there's things that has to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I touched on when saying that earlier, and I want to just retouch on now. You will hear people like myself say, oh, well, I'm just saying, I haven't been in the full day in the office in 6 months. The work is still getting done, right? It may not be me doing the work, but the work is still getting done. There's a lot of work in this business. I think one of the hardest things for new investors to realize is that this is work. People see people pull up in the really nice luxury cars, and they've got their boat and the nice house, and not having to go to work all the time, and they're like, oh, if I'm an investor, that's what's going to happen. And they get into the business, and they're like, wait, this is work? What the heck is this? And they drop out. I mean, our turnover is huge in this business. You see people come in, come out, come in, come out. You've got to get into it with the right attitude. You've got to get into it understanding that when you do this business, every day you've got to work on your marketing. Every day you've got to work on your marketing. You have to figure out something that you're either going to be sending every day. And one of the great tools for that is the Propelio leads. I mean, I'm hawking this isn't a paid commercial, but I swear, I mean, I mean, personal experience. I used to, and I've beat him up so many times, and I always tell people I beat him up because I was legitimately mad at him whenever he started giving these leads away to Propelio, because these were the leads that like we had as our secret weapon that we, you know what I mean? And I used to pay somebody every morning to go out and get these leads for me and get everything done. And now that he's sending them out via email every day, I mean, I don't do that anymore. Now I'm just marketing off of those leads because they are good leads, right? For those of you who are in Texas, or in the, I guess, mainly
we're in like 7 markets now.
7 markets now? Okay, great. So, and that, obviously is expanding and those kinds of things. So, but that's a daily thing right there. If you're a Propelio user, you have it spoon-fed to you. You have something spoon-fed to you that's a daily activity. One of my students, a lot of my students, they don't want to do the work, right? That's what I always harp on. They don't want to do the work. Well, one of my students, did the work, and they were sending out every day, and they just made the commitment to themselves. I can manage 20 letters a day. And so they managed 20 letters a day. Well, 3 weeks later, we just closed on their first deal on Friday off the Propelio leads. And they're like, I didn't think this was gonna, they were one of the people that was like, I'm not gonna send mail because everybody's sending mail. And I was like, send the mail, do the mail. And 3 weeks it took them to get their first deal. And it is a killer deal. They're in at 110 on a deal that's worth 170, right? I mean, they're gonna make cash off of this deal, right? So you've gotta focus on your marketing every day. You've gotta focus on what are you doing today that's gonna make you money today, and what are you going to do today that's gonna make you money tomorrow, is how I always refer to it, right? You've got your tomorrow money and your today money. My tomorrow money is my $400 a month cash flow property, right? That's gonna get me money over time. But when you're starting out, that $400 isn't gonna pay your rent and isn't gonna pay your groceries and that kind of stuff. So you gotta focus on today money. What are you gonna do today? Are you gonna wholesale a property? Are you going to get a large down payment maybe from one of these things, right? So you've gotta be focusing on what are you doing for your tomorrow money? What are you doing for your today money? And your marketing has to be a part of that equation. And I say it in that way because that branches out into so many things, right? My tomorrow money is also investing in my staff and training my staff to make sure that they know how to handle situations so that they can build the business and build the empire down the way. So you can interpret that in any way you want, but those are my pieces of advice. Work on your marketing every day, and every day sit down and say, what have I done today to make today money, and what have I done today to make tomorrow money?
I absolutely love how you drilled that in, because anytime somebody approaches me and says, what are the top 3 things you need to do as a real estate investor? And I said, A, you need to market, B, market, C, market. If you're not doing those 3 things, you're not a real estate investor, because you're not going to be able to implement any of your real estate investing strategies if you don't do A, B, and C, and that's market, market, market. You should be a shameless marketer. I mean, just absolutely just pound to the pavement on the marketing. Mm-hmm. And one of the transitioning periods in my investing career, which you kind of rung a bell with, was today money and tomorrow money. Today money and tomorrow money. Mm-hmm. When I first got started out, and what I see a lot of other investors that are just getting started out in this business doing is they do a lot of busy work. And what busy work is, I need to organize my office, I need to set up my filing systems, I need to put together an LLC, get my business cards, I need to do this, I need to do that. That is all busy work. That does not make you money. The very first thing I do every morning when I get up is I have a notepad on my desk, and I take a list of everything that I need to get done. And then I go through and prioritize everything that's on my list by what gets me paid, what has to be done, and what needs to get done. And that's how I do it, is I do what gets me paid first, and if at the end of the day, my day ends, and I didn't have enough to do anything else, then all I got done was get paid that day, because you need to focus on being paid. The next things I do are the things that have to get done, like file my taxes, follow up with my CPAs, get in touch with my lawyers to take care of those types of things. Those are things that have to be done to keep my business going, but they don't get me paid, so those take priority second. And the third thing I do are the things I want to do, like I want to get new business cards, I want to set up a new email. Those are the things that I want to do. Those are things that get you paid. So don't worry about all those little things that are busy work. Focus on the things that are actually getting you paid.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's one of the things that actually took me a minute to learn, is because I come from the IT world, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm all about automation. That's one of the reasons why my business model was I'm going to work now like crazy and put the right people in the right place so that things are automated for me down the line, right? So I'm all about automation. I'm all about the systems and that kind of stuff. But man, that's easy to just be like, oh man, I can use this thing, and it's just gonna take me this time to set this thing up, and then once that's all going, and then blah, 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 and at the end of the day, I didn't send any marketing out, and then at the end of the month, I didn't buy a house, right? So that took me some time to figure out. That literally, and it's funny to hear the similarities as you start talking to more and more investors who have been in the business, because literally, I do the same exact thing. I look at my to-do list, and I say, what's going to make me money? Right? That is the thing I have to do right now, because a lot of times I really enjoy the systems. I really enjoy doing that other stuff. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to start working on this. But I have to remind myself to kick myself in the face and say, look at your to-do list. Is there an item on this list that's going to make you money? Do that now, right? Then you can work on the stuff that's going to do something later on, right? And so I love how you put that. And if I can just add one thing to what it takes, something that you've got to do to really make it in this business, is A, you've got to shave your head, B, grow a goatee. That's the
number one common denominator. If you see a successful investor, shave your head, grow a goatee, and you're done. Business is solved. So That's crazy. That's one of the things I love about you. You can always make somebody laugh, and I mean, you're really good at doing that. What are your goals for the next 12 months? What's coming down the pipeline for Grant Kemp? What do you want to see yourself at?
So right now, I mean, we're talking about the private money thing, right? So right now, my biggest thing that I'm working on at this moment is private money models and bringing in a large fund. I've had a hedge fund out of Atlanta and Chicago contact me about shooting some big money through me into the business, and it really opened my eyes to how the majority of the market, these big boys play, right? So right now, what I'm working on for this next 12 months is I'm really looking for a way, or I have the way, but I'm really just putting all the pieces in place to get private money to purchase houses with at the wholesaler price, right? Fix it up, sell it with owner financing, season it, sell the note. Okay. Right, so that's been my big model focus right now, and it's kind of cool because I've got two branches of that. I've got one branch where I'm doing that just for pure, that's the business model that I want to do. Secondly, I sit on the board of directors for a charity called Trusted World, trustedworld.org. You should go check it out, it's great. We can use your donations and your time, whatever that is. But, you know, one of the great things about this business is that, you know, with a model like that, or with any model really, long story short, I've set up a company that's a nonprofit real estate company, and it's doing the same exact model, but all the profits are going to support Trusted World off of that, right? So those are kind of my two big projects for this next 12 months is taking that model, turning that into something that supports this nonprofit as a tomorrow money kind of deal, bringing in recurring payables, getting the funds put together for that, and then just focusing more on my educational side of things. You know, I'm doing a lot more of that stuff too.
So I hadn't heard about Trusted World before. I don't think we've ever had a chance to discuss that. What is it for? What does it do?
So Trusted World is actually really cool. I'm big into niches, right? I'm big into niches that people aren't filling. It's one of the reasons why I was huge into seller financing. Well, Trusted World is similar in that way where what we do is we provide the supplies and the needs that people have to the nonprofits that are taking care of the people, right? Okay. So our biggest clients are like the police departments, like Dallas, Allen, McKinney, Frisco police departments all work with us, all the school systems, battered women shelters, homeless shelters, that kind of thing. And our CEO is a Six Sigma guy, a warehousing guy. And so what we do is we take all the donations, we take all the clothing and the furniture and all that kind of stuff, and we have it organized very meticulously in a Six Sigma kind of way, to where literally when somebody, one of these organizations, we call them caseworkers, the people that are actually dealing with the people, if they need something, they used to have maybe a box in the corner where they might have some toothpaste or might have some clothes that might fit on them, and that took up space that they couldn't put more people in, and it took up time, and they weren't good at that. That wasn't their thing, was helping the people. Well, now we have an online system. They can just go on to trustedworld.org and say, hey, I've got a guy here who needs to go in for a job interview and we need a size 32 pants and this and that and the other, and we pack it up and we deliver it to them for free, right? So that's what we're doing that's our domestic side of things. We send about 500,000 meals a month over to northern Iraq to help the refugees that are going over there, and we work with Hun Oil to make sure that all those things are going on, and Haiti and Louisiana's disasters that have come with all the floods. So we work internationally, we work nationally, and we work domestically, but we're serving a niche, we're serving a need for people helping people, right?
That's pretty amazing. I mean, that is one of the extra benefits of real estate, is that you get to help more and more people. Yeah. I mean, would you have been able to do that without, the real estate side of this business?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, that's one of the things too, like I was talking about, I haven't been in the office in 6 months. Well, it's not like I'm just sitting at home twiddling my thumbs watching Netflix, right? That's allowed me to really work in the community, right? Mm-hmm. Like now I'm able to spend more time on charity stuff. I spend more time at, doing community outreach stuff at the church and making sure that, things are taken care of, because guys, we're buying real estate, we're building community. That's what we're doing anyway. We're providing that ability, right? And let me just step away for 1 second too, and let me just say, I'm in real estate because it makes my living, right? I'm in real estate because it makes money, and I don't want you guys, I think one of the number one mistakes that I see people make when they're in a seller lead is the seller's like, well, why are you here? And they're like, I just like helping people. I just want to help people. I want to help you sell your house. Sellers can read right through that crap, right? They know you're here to make money. And so I'm very upfront with my sellers. Hey, I'm here because this feeds my family, right? I'm here because this is what pays my bills, right? But that being said, it does open up the ability to really focus on, I've spent so much time with my wife. We're expecting a kid. You know what I mean? Like, I spend all day with my wife, and we've really built a wonderful relationship. I spend all this time in the community. And without what real estate has to offer, and without the income and the tomorrow money and the passive income and all of the wonderful benefits that real estate has, never would have been able to do that.
That is the truth. I mean, if I was still working my 9 to 5, I'd still be working 80 hours a week for somebody else and seeing my wife maybe an hour before I get home, before I go to bed, and I'm up before she gets up, and I'm at home by the time she's going to bed. And you know, that's been something real estate has provided to me.
Yeah, yeah, and it's there. It's there. I mean, it really is, and it's not rocket science. I mean, you're watching ways to do it, right? If you continue down the path you're already going down by looking at these videos, by figuring out how to get systems together through systems like in CRMs and stuff like Propelio, and putting the right people in the right place and following up and doing the things you need to do every day. I mean, it took me 3 years to get to that point. That's not a long time to spend, right? Think about where you were 3 years ago. Imagine if you had started then, where you would be today, right?
Yep.
And a lot of times people get intimidated because they think, oh man, it's just going to take so much time to build. I can't leave my job. It's not going to be 3 years. I can't, But here's the thing: never don't do something, right? Never pass up an opportunity. I'll put it that way. Never pass up an opportunity because of how much time it's going to take. The time will pass anyway. Right?
That is a saying that they say entrepreneurs are phenomenal for biting off more than they can chew, hoping that they figure out how to swallow it before it chokes them. I mean, and that's the case. I mean, every day I'll hop out and I'll be like, that's a deal. Don't know how to do it, but that's a deal, and I'll figure something out. Let's put it under contract, and I'll figure out the details later. But in a fast-moving market or any market period, you see an opportunity, do not sit on it, because if you sit on it, somebody else is going to snatch it right up. Grab it and figure out what to do as you're moving forward, because you don't need to have every detail figured out. You need to have the basics of, is that a deal? And if you can understand that it's a deal, forget everything else. It's a deal, take it and figure out how to deal with it later.
And bring somebody in. If you need to bring somebody in to help you out.
That's how me and you got started together.
I was about to say, that's how we got started. I mean, Daniel is one of the most successful single-family real estate investors I know, and I know a lot of people. I mean, I speak nationally, and I know a lot of people. Daniel's one of the, he's one of the most, he came to me because he was like, I need to know how to do subject to. I got these deals in front of me that I'm passing up on, and we partnered up on several deals, and that grew his tool belt, right? 100%. You don't have to be a newbie to need partnerships. Too many newbies, too many new people they get this mentality, this guarded mentality of like, I can't share with anybody. There's only so many deals. Well, you'll find the successful investors, we're talking openly about what we're doing. We all network
with each other. We all push deals back and forth to each other, because there's going to be times where something hits my table and I'm like, you know what, Grant's probably going to want this one, and I'll just push it your way. He'll hit something and we partner up together, and it's an abundance mentality. If you come into this with that minimalist mentality, like, oh man, there's only so many houses, and it's going to really limit your growth. If you come into this with the abundance mentality and you network and you partner with other investors like that, it's going to allow you to expand much faster.
I love the phrase, I'm stealing. There's another guy that does owner financing in the Dallas area called Grant. Don't confuse us. My name's Grant Kemp. He's terrific. But I'll steal a phrase of his that he says, for people to call us competitors is like two fleas on the back of a St. Bernard arguing over whose dog it is. Right?
That is an amazing analogy. Grant, I'm going to have to steal that one.
Yeah,
I'm stealing that one. Yeah. Two fleas arguing on the back of a St. Bernard over whose dog it is. That is amazing. So if anybody wanted to get in contact with you, is there some resources for them to get in touch with you if they needed to?
Yeah. You can email me, Grant at CreativeCashFlow.com. Pretty simple there, and just shoot me a message. Like I said, I'm always open to partner with people. I do training. I'm always open to talk and see what's going on and what we can do to help you. Because again, that's one of the things you find in the business is that as time goes on, we're willing to help, right? If there's a deal there, let's work on it. Let's get you going.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Grant Kemp with CreativeCashFlow.com, and I appreciate y'all coming in.
All right.